Hello everyone, hello and welcome to an introduction lesson to Kabbalah. I hope you guys can all hear me well, and I hope the connection is well, as I can see there are quite a few people on the screens today. And so the sound is okay and the visual is okay. Everybody's hearing me fine, great. Nice to see a lot of friends from Japan, Australia, New Zealand and Turkey as well. So we're going to have an overall introduction lesson to the wisdom of Kabbalah, as you guys are probably aware because you've looked into it and registered for it. I'm going to talk a little slowly because our friends are going to be translating to Japanese. So if I'm talking a little slow every now and then, just note that somebody's translating simultaneously. So I just want to make sure he gets a relaxed translation as well. So today the main topic is the wisdom of Kabbalah, what the meaning and the purpose of life is, and what are we here to really do. And before we go into that, let me just give a little brief introduction. My name is Mutlu Meydan, and I'm a student of B'nai Baruch since 2001, and I'm currently also teaching and studying with the group in B'nai Baruch here in Israel. It's a really privilege, it's a great privilege and an honor to be with you all today. And I hope we'll all get a great deal out of this little introduction lesson. Because it's an introduction lesson, obviously the wisdom is really deep, but the lesson's going to be an intro, so I'm going to zip file it a little bit. So it's going to be a little short and sweet kind of lecture, but if you have any questions, anything you'd like to ask about the wisdom of Kabbalah, what it is, how we study it, where it comes from and so forth, please don't hesitate to ask. You can send your questions on Zoom, and today we can see quite a lot of people here today with us actually, hopefully if you have questions too, we'll get them answered as well. So I'll just enlarge that, and there we go. There we go. In case you're wondering who's with us, there's quite a lot of people, as you can see, from around the world, and we have a lot of people in Japan right now, in Tokyo, gathered to watch the lecture as well. So okay, so let's get smashing and let's talk about what the wisdom of Kabbalah is. As the name suggests, the wisdom of Kabbalah is actually a wisdom. It's a science. It's a science about our lives. It's a science about the whole of creation, how everything was created, and not just how everything was created, but also why was everything created, because that's one of the biggest dilemmas of our lives, especially in the 21st century now, as we see society really not figuring out any way to fulfill themselves with happiness, and any further development is really not ahead of us. We don't see that we can get pleasure from many things, despite the fact we're really developed in the 21st century. And despite the fact that we have everything, with respect to prior generations, we're in a much better state. But despite all that, we're not really happy with our lives, and we feel a little lost in life. So especially during this time in the 21st century, a lot of people in humanity is asking, well, why are we living, and what's the purpose of life? Why is this reality created at all for us? And all the answers to these questions lie in this wisdom called the wisdom of Kabbalah. So the wisdom of Kabbalah is a wisdom, it's a science for us to understand our place in reality. How we can discover the purpose of life and actually what we can do to attain it. And you might find that it talks about many common things with many wisdoms in life. However, you'll find something really interesting in the wisdom of Kabbalah, and that's how to practically achieve the purpose of life, like what to do to become and to attain that purpose in reality. So it's a very special wisdom, and it's a very, very old wisdom. And talking about its age, let's also talk about where it comes from just briefly. The wisdom of Kabbalah first originated from a person called Adam, which is nearly 6,000 years ago. And Adam was the first person to actually understand his nature and the collisions that it was going through with the common laws of nature. And as you probably are aware as well, nature is in balance. It's quite balanced. The animate, vegetative, and the still levels of reality, they all function in a balanced way, except humans. We simply like to use everything for our benefit, like we're using the planet right now for all our benefits, and you can see how much ecological disasters we're having. All of the ecological disasters are because we're actually abusing nature, we're abusing the planet. So this person called Adam, 6,000 years ago, discovered that there was a difference between how nature worked and how his nature, his desires and how his thoughts were conflicting with the common laws of nature. And through the study of the laws of nature, he was actually able to discover and perceive a higher level of perception where he could actually understand why everything in life was working the way it was working. And this wisdom later developed by many Kabbalists, because a person who attains this level of perception, this higher level of understanding about how the reality functions, what's behind reality, and the person's place in reality, is called a Kabbalist. So after Adam, there were actually a lot of Kabbalists, quite a few in fact, because everyone taught each other at the time. And during the times of Babylon, a person called by the name of Abraham, he was actually the first person to explain to the people in Babylon that, you know, our nature isn't really compatible with the general laws of nature. We're actually destroying each other, we're constantly fighting each other, we're constantly in wars, battles, and although nature has a very simple balance, we seem to be very out of place. We just don't seem to be in sync. We're not synchronized to nature. And that was the reason that all of the suffering was happening. He said the cause of our suffering, our lack of fulfillment, why we're not happy in life, is simply because we're not adapted to these laws of nature. And so the wisdom of Kabbalah has been developing since then. And throughout the centuries also, not just the wisdom of Kabbalah has been developing, but also our ego has been developing. And right now we're going to touch on this topic a little bit about how the wisdom of Kabbalah describes to us what we are, what our essence is, what our nature is, and what the general laws of nature are, and how we can really adapt ourselves, we can reconcile both natures in order to come to a certain balance. So the wisdom of Kabbalah is a science to attain everything that has influenced creation, the force behind creation, the creating force. Sometimes we call it the creator or the light, and also what we're supposed to do. Now, before we jump on further, if you ever looked into the wisdom of Kabbalah on the internet, you'll probably find a lot of different definitions, a lot of different things about the wisdom of Kabbalah. So I just want to clarify all that right in the beginning so we don't get confused. The wisdom of Kabbalah is only dealing, the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah actually, is only dealing with a person's discovery of life, creation, and everything that is behind and inside and operating this creation. It has nothing to do with charms. It has nothing to do with all kinds of, I don't know, mystical events or all kinds of good luck charms or future telling or fortune telling or whatever. This is a very concrete, solid wisdom for a person who's actually asking one very fundamental question. What is the meaning of my life? Why am I living? Why am I not happy with my life? Why am I suffering? Why is the world suffering? And what's the purpose of all these sufferings that we're going through? The problems between us, the problems in ecology, the problems in all kinds of events in life, our family, our friends, all the problems we have between countries. We just seem to have this constant, non-stop distress, an ongoing conflicting state of humanity. Also at an individual level, even though we may not be in a serious war currently in the world, but think about all the daily struggles that we're going through, where we don't have any questions why bad things happen to us. And even if nothing bad seems to happen, or why we're simply not happy with our lives, why we're not fulfilled. So this is a wisdom to actually study, where an individual really wants to understand his or her place in reality and to connect with that and to reconcile his or her life with everything that's actually embedded in nature. This allows us to live in a higher level of perception, where we can actually understand everything that's happening to us. Because at the end of the day, our world is a reactive world. Something happens to us and we react. We don't really even know what we're going to do the next moment, because we don't know what's going to happen the next moment. So our life is, if you look at it, really blurry. And in order to come out of that blurriness, a person needs to attain what is called the reasons for creation, the reasons for existence, so that we can actually have some kind of a direction, so we can give some kind of purpose to our lives. And there is a general purpose for the whole of humanity. There's a general purpose for the whole of humanity. And that purpose is actually to attain this higher level of perception, this higher level of existence, which is actually living in a state which is independent and beyond our corporeal bodily existence. Because at the end of the day, what really is our body? It's just an animal, just like any cat, dog. It also is born, it lives and dies. But what's that special thing that we should attain to go beyond this reality? And this wisdom really opens the gates for us to delve into how we can go beyond this perception, beyond our five senses, and actually attain something much greater. Sometimes we call it, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, a soul. You can call it a sixth sense. You can call it a higher level of perception. However, there is a purpose which is a high level of existence for humanity. And it's actually for everybody in humanity. So Kabbalists look at the whole world, the whole of humanity, as one family, really. And this is why this wisdom can be studied by anyone, regardless of their religion, their race, color, any tradition, or so forth. Because at the end of the day, it is a science, and the science is beyond all the corporeal understandings or cultures that we're really living inside. So now that we understand that this is a wisdom, let's take a look at our lives a little bit, so we can, from our current state, maybe direct ourselves to what the future holds for us, or according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, what it should be holding for us. Who wants to be happy? Let me ask the first question, okay? Does anybody want to be happy? Yes? Raise your hand if you want to be happy. Somebody must want to be happy. Okay, great. So I've got a few people at least want to be happy. So it's great. Okay. So here lies the question, really, right? Sometimes we understand that, well, we don't understand. We feel very actually not happy at all. We're unhappy, a little distressed, a little empty, not feeling fulfilled with life. Despite the fact that we can get anything we want, we are still not fulfilled in life. If you look at our lives and compare it to, I don't know, 100 years ago or 70 years ago or a few hundred years ago, we have everything. And a few hundred years ago, even 100 years ago, people didn't have much. You know, just finding daily food was a problem a few hundred years ago. But now in our lives, as you can see, we have everything. We have food, we have internet, we have cars, we can go wherever we want, we can travel wherever we want, we can actually really do whatever we want. But at the end of the day, despite the fact that we can do everything, and we look at the civilized world, and it's got the highest rate of depression. It's got the highest rate of loneliness. It's got the highest rate of people wanting to isolate themselves. More people on drugs, more people on, I don't know, all kinds of substance abusers. Why can we not be happy if we have everything? So that's the big dilemma of humanity. And this is why lately you've probably heard in many countries they're making marijuana a legal, I don't know, legal pastime. I don't know what they call it nowadays. Okay, it's drugs basically, but they're making it legal. Why? Because so that we can somehow get out of this this state of feeling uneasy or stressed or I don't know, sadness. And there's a very simple reason for that in laws of nature, which is what the wisdom of Kabbalah is really dealing with. The wisdom of Kabbalah says our nature is programmed to want to be fulfilled. By nature, we want to be happy. And in order to fulfill ourselves with happiness, what we do is we try to get what we want. And the Kabbalists say, well, this is a bit of a problem because if we're a desire to receive, let's do this in a drawing. If I'm a desire to receive pleasure, this is our nature. Okay, this is how it works. This is why every day you want something. Okay, you might want things today, you might want things for tomorrow, 5 years later, but all of us have desires. And we want to fulfill these desires because we think that if I get what I want, which is fulfillment, I'm going to be happy. Okay? This is how it works, right? This is how we've been raised as well. They tell us when we're children, listen, you know, go to school, finish your college, get the job you want, then you can make the money you want, you can buy the things you want, you can go wherever you want, you can do whatever, and you can be happy. Right? This is how we were raised. At least my generation was half like that, if not more of us. So that's how we went out. We went out to go do something and to conquer the world and to be happy. And because this is our nature doesn't really disagree. So yeah, let's go, let's get things, let's be happy, let's be fulfilled, let's do whatever we'd like to do and be happy in life. Okay, you only live once, right? So you want to make the best of it. Well, there's a bit of a problem with this because every time you get what you want, the desire, this is the desire, right? The desire and the fulfillment, they cancel each other out. It's like you're back to square one. Well, not back to square one because you're in a minus, because you exerted effort, I don't know, maybe paid money, invested time, and that's all gone. Think of it like you're having your favorite meal. Okay, you're really hungry and your mum has prepared your favorite food. So you come home really hungry and you start eating with a really good appetite because you've got a big desire for the food. All right, you've got a big desire and a big appetite. But as you eat, what happens? Your taste buds feel the taste of the food, the pleasure, less and less and less. So the pleasure, the fulfillment is decreasing as I'm fulfilling my desire. So you think, well, wait a minute, as I'm eating my favorite food, halfway through, I'm already not feeling the taste in my taste buds anymore because my taste buds are used to it. Okay, so the first, for example, one of my favorite desserts is chocolate ice cream. Right? The best taste is when you get the first lick. Okay, because you get the first lick and that's when you really, really taste the chocolate. And then afterwards, by the time you're like 1/3 down, your taste buds are already used to that. So you're just eating it because you want to finish the ice cream. On my mind, I'm probably thinking about, I'll have a bit of coffee afterwards as well. I'm already over the ice cream, even though it's not even finished. It's like that with all our desires. Anything we buy, it has a time span, like a, a rack life cycle, and it ends, it evaporates. Any desire I fulfill, the pleasure goes away. It could be clothes, it could be a new car, it could be a new house. You get the pleasure at first, depending how big pleasure depending on the size of your desire. Okay? If you really, really want something, it's something really great, and you get it, there's a lot of pleasure in it. But over time, with everything, that pleasure just fades away. It just goes away. And we're left constantly running after something else to compensate this lack of pleasure. It's like a dog chasing its tail all the time. Because we have this understanding that pleasure and fulfillment is only getting the things we want in life and filling ourselves up. Could be with anything. Could be with, I don't know, any desire you have. If you have a desire and if you get it, they'll cancel each other out. You'll always be left with a zero, or with a minus, possibly a minus in the bank account as well. And the reason is this law in nature. The desire and the pleasure, they always cancel each other out. Now, because we're all sick and tired of that in the 21st century, what do? We ask ourselves about the meaning of life. Why are we living? What's the purpose? If I have everything and I'm still not happy, why am I living anyway? So all these questions are currently surfacing in humanity because we're really developed to that state now where we look at our corporeal life and we don't really see any more pleasure that we can get. However, though, despite this is how nature works, this desire to receive pleasure is always inside of us. So we're in a bit of a dilemma. On the one hand, we're a desire to receive pleasure and we want to be happy, we want to be fulfilled. And on the other hand, though, if we carry on living in this format, we're never going to be happy. It's just not going to happen. It cannot happen. So what kind of a problem are we in? On the one hand, we need fulfillment because that's our nature. Our nature really seeks fulfillment. It wants to be happy, but it cannot be happy the way it's working right now. So the wisdom of Kabbalah says, well, here is the purpose of life. In fact, the purpose of life is to be happy. The purpose of life is to be fulfilled. The purpose of life is actually to be fulfilled all the time, non-stop. Our problem is we're going about it the wrong way. And this is why humanity is in a vicious cycle and it doesn't really know how to get out of it. So here comes the wisdom of Kabbalah from all the way from Abraham, from the years of Babylon, thousands of years ago, explaining us this simple law in nature. We're a desire to receive pleasure, but if you get fulfilled, pleasure and the desire, they cancel each other out. This leaves the question, if I want to be happy because that's my nature, what do I need to do? Okay, that's the question. And like I said, the wisdom of Kabbalah says, well, the purpose of life is to have endless happiness. So we're just going to touch on that right now. Now, I did say we'll talk about the history of the wisdom of Kabbalah for a little bit, and I'll do a little brief introduction if I can get my head around it. Now, overall, for thousands of years, humanity's egoism, this desire to receive pleasure, has been increasing. Okay? So throughout the thousands of years, let's call this, let's say for the benefit of the exercise, minus 5,000 years. Until, let's call this here, 21st century. Our egoism has been constantly increasing. An ever-growing egoism. This is why the world is always going from bad to worse, and it'll get worse. It won't stop getting worse until humanity understands that the way we live right now, eating up ourselves, eating up others, eating up the planet, it just can't go on. So humanity's egoism, from a very, very small egoism, let's call this small ego, to the 21st century is now maxed out. Okay, maxed out. Our egoism doesn't have any other place to go. If it did, we'd be chasing those desires. It just doesn't see anywhere else to go. And how would we know that? Well, we'd know that due to the increase in depression, due to the increase in drug abuse, where people want to just disconnect from life. This is also why we're inventing all kinds of third reality kind of technology. We just want to disconnect. All the inventions actually we're coming up with lately, trying to go to Mars, trying to live in space, putting some 3D goggle on and just disconnecting myself from the world completely, or taking a drug and just forgetting about life, is simply because we can't find anywhere else to go, and we just want to disconnect from this reality. This is also why many people isolate themselves. They want to be alone. They want to live in their own little shells. Also, we just want to disconnect. We just don't want to be a part of this reality because we just don't see any benefit from it. We just don't see a fulfillment. Now, our egoism throughout the history helped us a lot. It helped us develop. We developed technology. We developed all kinds of things to advance ourselves. But if we look at our history, mostly we've just ended up suffering from it, really. I mean, all our technology is mostly from, the defense industry. Everything, even our internet, even the sellotape, is from the defense industry. So everything that we developed actually throughout this egoism has been to really eat everybody else up. Okay, and what this has led to is the state in the 21st century, which we call a humanity crisis. Okay, and currently we're having problems in economy, which we're going to see a lot more problems with economy over the next coming months, especially towards the end of the year and next year. We're seeing a lot of conflicts around the world, a lot of conflicts. There's going to be more. Hopefully we won't go to a world war, but as you can see, the world is heating up. And also, as you can see, there's a lot of ecological disasters all around. So there are many, many problems which are multifaceted. They're like really surrounding us. From earthquakes to tsunamis to the icebergs melting, the forests burning, all kinds of things. And we just still can't stop ourselves from eating the planet up even more. So this period that we're in is really affecting us from an ecological, from a social, and also from a personal perspective. And it's really surrounding us and squeezing us. It's really like life trying to, say, come on, ask about why you're living. What's the meaning of your life? Why are you existing? It's seemingly bringing us all these problems just to, ask us this, so we can ask this question to ourselves. What am I doing with my life? So the wisdom of Kabbalah says, well, there is a solution to that question. And that solution to the question is actually to study, to work on ourselves, let's say, in order to change ourselves so that we can adapt to the general laws of nature, where everything in nature by itself is in balance. And all the ecological disasters, mind you, we're having is because we're not balanced with ecology. We're not balanced internally with ecology. We're not balanced socially as humanity with ecology. We're not balanced amongst ourselves. Forget the ecology, put that aside for a moment. So this lack of balance, this lack of harmony in society, in our nature, obviously is causing all the problems at an ecological level as well. So the wisdom of Kabbalah says, well, look, throughout history, from Babylon onwards, from Babylon, where we first did the industrial revolution with farming, all the way up to here with all the revolutions, the technology and everything, we've come to this point where we're like, well, we have everything, but what's the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? And the wisdom of Kabbalah answers and deals with this question. So if you're asking this question, this wisdom is probably for you. Which means that anybody can study the wisdom of Kabbalah. Anybody that has a question about the meaning of life can study this wisdom. In short, this wisdom tells us that our world here, so let's call this our world, our current level of perception, is a world of consequence. Consequences. It's a result. And everything that happens here is actually influences of laws of nature, or you can call it the Creator. That forces influences on us. Everything that happens here. So we have the cause for everything here, the causes, the reasons. And here we're just living consequences. This is why we don't know what's going to happen the next moment. We don't know if we're going to, die the next minute, God forbid, but we don't know. Okay? So it's a problem. It's a problem for all of us because our life doesn't seem to make any sense the way we're living right now. So the Kabbalists say, listen, well, if you understand what's going on here, understand this, and down here, you'll be a happy person. Simply because you understand the reason and the consequence relationship. You see, everything in nature has a cause and consequence. If there's one thing happening, there must be something corresponding to it that causes, the cause must bring about a result, a consequence. And because we don't understand that, we're in a loss. So the Kabbalists are saying the way that we can be constantly fulfilled in life, in nature, is by simply adapting ourselves and understanding these laws in nature, which will allow us to, first of all, have a great life here, but more importantly, to actually develop a sixth sense or a higher level of perception, a higher level of existence, which is actually detached from this corporeal body, which has a lifespan. So this life, this world, and the whole of creation is actually created for us to attain something much greater and beyond the limits of this world. And we can also use this science to actually build a great world here and attain something beyond this world, which is actually to reach that perception of the Creator, or call it this upper force of creation. And that is actually the purpose of life, to exist at a much higher and exalted level. Our life here is very short. It could be a few days, it could be 100 years. and in between we don't know when, why anything can happen. So for us to understand and to learn and to discover the meaning of life and how we can actually attain it is obviously a great benefit, because it sorts out our life. It gives us a great direction to attain, and it's something really fulfilling, simply because it opens up this new approach to life, where you can actually keep going on by constantly enjoying yourself, finding ways to actually discover a greater fulfillment, which is much deeper than this superficial plastic world we're living in, really. So in a nutshell, this is what the wisdom of Kabbalah is and where it comes from thousands of years ago. And right now, in our lives, right now, it's very, very relevant as we see the world constantly deteriorating and just going to a worse state all the time. But it's also giving us a wake-up call. So all of these problems that we're having in life, on the one hand, is quite dramatic, but on the other hand, if you think about it, it's trying to give humanity a wake-up call. Everything now in ecology, in society, all the things that can happen in the world right now, if you look at it, from wars to all kinds of diseases, or we haven't even started experiencing problems at the vegetative level yet. It's already quite dramatic, so hopefully we won't get there, because then we might not have anything to eat. So the wisdom of Kabbalah is a way for us to balance ourselves, balance the whole of humanity, the whole of reality, and actually exist beyond this corporeal level, completely free from the shackles of our limited experiences here. In a nutshell, that's what it is. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And I do recall we have a few questions that came in earlier, which I'm going to touch on right now, from our Japanese friends, from our friends in Japan. So it's actually really good to see them. In fact, if you guys don't mind me putting you guys up there we go. There's our friends from Japan as well. So hi to everyone from Japan. It's really good to see you guys there in Tokyo. I wish I was there in person. So hope you guys are all well. Great. So a few friends from Japan sent some questions in. So let's start with them and we'll warm up a little bit. Okay. In Japan, when we hear the word Kabbalah, we think about changing words into numbers, numerology, or gematria. If I start to study Kabbalah with B'nai Baruch, will we deal with numerology as a part of the study at some point? Well, numerology comes... Well, what is numerology? Okay, let's first take a look at that. Gematria, or numerology, is actually using numbers to express something. And the Hebrew alphabet, by the way, comes from Adam. Okay, so when he made the alphabet, I guess he decided to give it numbers as well, because every letter is also correspondent to a number. So for example, Aleph is A and it's 1. So Bet is B and it's 2. And sometimes Kabbalists used numbers to express a certain state that corresponded to their higher level of perception. Sometimes also we call this higher level of perception spirituality. Spirituality in the wisdom of Kabbalah is actually to attain the nature of the Creator, or to attain actually the nature of nature, let's say. We could also say that as well. Because we're talking about a science here. So when we're talking about spirituality in the wisdom of Kabbalah, it's quite concrete. Spirituality is changing our nature from our current state into a different one, so we can perceive reality differently. And this is what they used it for mostly in their books. Now, when you're studying with B'nai Baruch, until we get to that kind of stuff, we'll have to study a little bit, so we'll have the foundations already. We need some certain base and a foundation and certain knowledge before we can delve into things of Gematria at a deeper level. Because at the end of the day, you can't really learn how to swim from a book. So you can't really learn spirituality by just reading something or relating it something to numbers. Spirituality is something that must be attained in our sensation. And only through that sensation, that attainment and understanding within the sensation, can we then begin to decipher all these special numerological factors and definitions and descriptions that the Kabbalists have been putting to us. So at one point you certainly can study them, but obviously you need to start walking first before running, just like in life, and that's how it is. That's like, there we go. Let's see us all on the screen. There we go. Okay. So that's that. So I'm sorry I didn't have any names here, so I can't call out your name because I haven't seen a name here. But what is actually a Kabbalist? Can a woman be a Kabbalist? That's a really nice question. Actually, all of us can be Kabbalists because spirituality is beyond gender. It is beyond all our corporeal traits, really. Because at the end of the day, what does our gender have to do with our spiritual sensations, right? So anybody can be a Kabbalist, a man or a woman. It has nothing to do with our gender at all. It is simply an attainment of a higher level of consciousness via the change of attributes from egoism to altruism. Now, I did mention our current nature, which is egoism, which we constantly want to fulfill ourselves, but we can't because pleasure and desire cancel each other out. However, I didn't say what we were going to attain. I haven't said it yet, okay? But we're going to make a little, in life, when you, just like in life, okay? When you need to understand something different, you need to kind of change your perspective on things. You know, you got to change your angle of approach, so you can look at things from a different perspective. And this is what Kabbalah really does. As we study, we begin to approach life from a different perspective that will allow us to change the way we use our nature. Because our nature is a desire to receive pleasure, which is not going to change, ever. We will always be a desire to receive pleasure, which is actually great, because who wouldn't want to receive pleasure? We want to receive pleasure, but the way we're going to bring about change in our perception of reality will actually allow us to constantly be in that elevated state of pleasure while having complete understanding of everything that's going on. And that's what the wisdom of Kabbalah allows us to attain. And that level of perception is completely detached from our corporeal senses. So imagine a state where you have your body that exists in this world, and with that sensation, you're also inside another sensation which is completely detached from your body. It understands everything that's going on in reality. It has a special connection with all the forces in nature and is actually an active, acting part in nature, which is completely in balance with it. Now, this actually solves all our problems in corporeality as well. Okay? So the wisdom of Kabbalah is very, very interesting, because I'll let you guys in on a little secret. All our sciences, okay, we can understand as long as they're below us. For example, we have let's go here. For example, we have the still level, the vegetative level, the animate level, and the human level, okay? So this is the still, this is the vegetative, the animate, human levels. Now we understand everything that's below us, right? So for example, all our worldly sciences, right? Physics, I don't know, chemistry, astronomy, you name it. Anything that relates to investigating the still level, we understand because there's simple laws of nature that we just discover. Same with the vegetable level, with botany. We understand how plants, how they live, how they reproduce, and so on. And with the animate as well, we can look at biology. We look at our body, we examine it, and we understand all the connections in our bodies as far as they've discovered it. I'm sure there's quite a lot they need to discover as well. And we understand it, right? But what is the human level? Well, the human level is our emotions and the understanding that corresponds to our emotions. And because we can't reconcile the feelings that we're going through with our mind, we have psychology. Well, we have a psychological crisis, let's say. Okay? Because psychology, the science of psychology, doesn't really solve our problems. It cannot solve our problems. Because you cannot generalize any human. Because just like our faces are different, the way we feel the world, see the world, get things from the world is different. Everybody's psychology is different. And so a psychological evaluation of humanity from the current state we're in is absolutely irrelevant. This is why we have a crisis here, problem. We don't understand ourselves. We understand animals, we understand the animal because our body is an animal. Just like your pet dog. All right? And we understand other things in nature, plants, I don't know, the stars, planets, how they move, everything. But we don't understand ourselves. In order for us to understand ourselves, we need to go one level higher. And that's what Kabbalah is really. That's where you need to get to if you want to understand your current life here. This is why attaining this higher level of perception actually allows you to balance everything in life. Everything. And that's the whole trick. Because here, we're just going to go from one war to another until the planet destroys us. Okay, the way we're going, it's going to eat us up. Rather than us eating it up at the end. Okay, that's what it looks like. So, until we rise to a higher level of understanding, perception, sensation, feelings, we won't be able to solve any of our problems here. So the wisdom of Kabbalah is actually teaching us how to balance everything in nature, including ourselves. So that's what a Kabbalist is. And when you're integrated correctly in nature, you can actually participate actively to create balance. In our state, we can't. In our state, humanity only creates imbalance because it has no idea about the purpose of life. It has no idea about what it wants to do with itself. It looks at life as a number of years, I'm going to stay here and let me make the best of it. And there's no way of making the best of it according to the way we're living. It's just not possible. Only if we go through a change can we make this reality, this world, completely balanced, great, wonderful, and on top of that, attain something that makes us completely independent from our bodily presence, from our bodily lives. So we can actually really live forever. Sounds a bit airy-fairy, but if you think about it, if you can live in a perception beyond your body, you're not restricted with the lifespan of your body. Think of our body like a little, rather than a piece of meat, let's think of it like like a perception. I'm living actually inside my perception. It's not a body. I just think I have a body. Well, I have a body, but what is the body at the end of the day? It's what I feel, what I think. It's what I'm perceiving in me. It's just a tool for me to perceive this reality. It's what it is. It's just a tool. It's like a hammer and a chisel. So now imagine another perception that we can attain, which is not restricted with this body. It still has its own perception, but it has a perception of a wider perspective, of a greater reality, and it doesn't have this body. Let's say it has another body that doesn't die. Okay, if you just compare the two, it's quite logical that an existence as such is possible. If you take our courses, or if you've already taken them, we touch on the topic of perception of reality, and we have touched on that for a lesson or two, I think, in the Education Center lessons, which for the Japanese friends, they're also translated to Japanese, by the way. If you're interested, there are quite a few lessons on all the fundamental, let's say, stepping stones of the wisdom of Kabbalah on that course. So if you're interested, it'd be good to take a look at it. There's another question here, and if I do get questions, please let me know, and that way I can see where we're at. Okay, so let's get back here. So there's another question. I heard that according to Kabbalah, there are 5 spiritual worlds that we rise up through. What's the actual sensation a person has when he or she enters the spiritual world of Asya? How does a person know if he or she has actually entered the first spiritual degree? If I have an interest in spirituality and study Kabbalah, does it mean I'm in the world of Asya? Well, that's a nice question. So we have a student who's obviously watched some of the lessons, which is good to know. It's good to know it's working. All right, there we go. All right, so you're right. So let's take a look at it diagrammatically, okay? This is our world here. Now, in our world, we don't feel spirituality. We're just stuck in this body. And what this body does is, just goes to rest in peace. Okay, this is the end of this body, right? So spirituality, if we attain it, well, when we attain it, because we have to attain it, it's the purpose in life. It is the purpose for all of humanity to attain a higher level of consciousness, and there is no running away from this purpose in life. Just like a child cannot stop its growth, just like we can't say, okay, you know what, great, I'm 21 years old, this is the best age ever, and I'm going to stop growing older. You can't. And you can't stop the process and the purpose of life. So all of us have to attain spirituality. So if we manage to attain spirituality, you're right. There are 5 worlds. Oops, let me draw that a bit straight. Use the straight line here. It's the world of Asya, Yetzirah, Biriya, Atzilut, and one more, Adam Kadmon. So these are spiritual worlds. Now, spiritual world means I'm living, in a certain degree of perception which is deeper than what I would be perceiving previously. So as we attain spirituality, I'm actually attaining a deeper understanding, a deeper sensation, perception of life, which is actually exactly how we grow in life. When we're a little baby, we don't feel the whole world. We don't know what's going on with the whole of the planet. We're a little baby, we're in our mother's arm, and we're being fed, we're being looked after, and we don't know about everything that's going on in the world, do we? We don't. But as we grow up, we begin to understand that I have a family, I've got friends, school, this is my country, this is the neighboring countries, this is the planet, and oh my God, we've got the moon, the planets, and so forth. All of a sudden, as I grow up, my perception of reality is also growing with me, isn't it? So in spirituality, it's the same thing. So when we first enter spirituality, what we begin to see are desires that I have that correspond to my relationship with the Creator. Okay, the Creator. I use the sign infinity, but when I use that, it means the Creator. Now, the purpose of life is to attain this high level of consciousness, which is actually the Creator Himself, or sometimes known as the thought of creation. Because our purpose is to exist in the same reality that the Creator exists in. So the worlds, Asiya, Yitzra, Bria, Atzut, and Adam Kadmon, are perceptions of how me and the Creator are related to each other, how our relationship is kind of being arranged with each other. Now, why is it hard to explain? Well, simply because if we don't perceive the Creator, it's really hard to explain. Second of all, even in this world, it's very hard to explain a feeling. So it's a problem to explain the feeling, but we can explain it in simple terms. Imagine you know someone, you just met someone, okay? Now, when you meet them, you don't know them. But as you become friends with them, as you become more intimate with them, you're going over years and years of friendship, you begin to know them at a deeper level. And this is how this system works with us and the Creator as well. It's the same thing like a child growing up and begins to discover the world. And same, we begin to discover the spiritual worlds and all the influences of that world upon us, we begin to discover. Now, sensationally, feeling-wise, it's impossible to describe because all of us are different as well. Anything you like, okay, let's say this is a friend from Japan, okay, let's say you and I both like sashimi, okay, we really love it and we're just getting a great taste from it. Even if we both love it, the way I love it and the way you love it will be different because we're different. So it's impossible to transfer a feeling, and it won't be right to do so either. And this is why it is best to really let the person go in there and discover it themselves, just like a child is always running around trying to discover this world. If you look at babies, they're always from here to there, tasting everything, touching everything. They want to grab everything from your hand to see it, to touch it, to taste it, and they want to discover it. So that discovery is very individual, and it must be so for all of us. Otherwise, it won't be a special thing. And in the books of Kabbalah also, they don't really talk about the sensation. They just talk about the overall reality of spirituality, which as we integrate ourselves into it, we'll discover these new sensations and feelings. It's a nice question, though. Now we have another question. What do we, the whole of humanity, need to awaken? Is this from Japan? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Do we know the person's name? No? Okay, so we have a question from a friend from Japan, which we don't know the name of. What do we, the whole of humanity, need to awaken? I think we just need to, rather than need to awaken, because the world is already awakening us, okay? And you wouldn't be here if you weren't awoken somehow. If you think about it, anybody who comes to the wisdom of Kabbalah is really asking about the meaning of life. And if you weren't asking, if you weren't thinking about why we're living, what are we doing in this world, you wouldn't really be here either. So I think we're all awake at least a little bit. So what we need to do is to advance in our study so we can move forward in order to make that critical change within ourselves. Spirituality is an inner change, okay? and that inner change needs to happen with the people who want to make that change. And a person with a desire to change is already a person with a desire to attain this level of existence. This is what we call a point in the heart in the wisdom of Kabbalah. When a person's asking about the meaning of life, we say that person has a dot in the heart. And now all we have to do is really realize this dot in the heart and really attain the purpose of life. And as we attain the purpose of life, we see that a lot of people come and they want to learn and they want to study and they want to join us and move forward. And this is why we have friends, as you can see also on the screen, from all over the world. We've got friends from, from the Middle East, from Africa to China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. By the way, I'm also Australian. It's good to see guys from Australia. Hi, everyone. So as we have awoken already, our job really is to come to the purpose of life and to actually help each other. Because the wisdom of Kabbalah is talking about a reality where everything is included in it. And because of that inclusive approach, everyone who wants to attain makes an inclusive group. And therefore, as we study, we attain the purpose of life. As we move forward, you'll also begin to see that other people will awaken as well. Because although we're a small part of humanity, all of humanity is connected to each other, right? Just think about it. We're all living on the same planet, right? Just think of it from a logical point of view. We're all living on the same planet. If we're all living on the same planet, it means we're all connected because we're all breathing the same air. Right? So that's already a common atmosphere. If there's a problem, I don't know, if there's an earthquake somewhere, like, God forbid we had one in New Zealand, in Japan also, it's a tsunami in Thailand also, it affects everybody in the world. Okay, it's not just that isolated place, it affects the whole world, ecologically, environmentally, psychologically. It puts us all on alert. If there's a fire happening somewhere, I don't know, in some country, it affects the whole atmosphere. Everything is affecting everybody. So it's already not a far-fetched thought for us to understand that all of us living in this planet, on this planet right now, are affected by everything, including the actions of everyone. So it takes one person to press a button somewhere on the planet and we're all done. And that understanding is already quite sharp. So it really, life is already pushing us and telling us, listen, please come to the purpose of life, do it quickly, because if you don't, just like you have to pressure a little child to grow, life will pressure us to grow, and there's no getting away from it. So the more we put into this development, the more we put effort into where we're supposed to go to, the sufferings will be less, the understanding of everything and why everything is happening will be more, and we'll have a smoother ride. And as we progress, we'll actually be pulling the whole of humanity as well, doing it. Right, we have another question. The point in the heart is same as the subconscious or totally different? Well, it's the point in the heart is apart from actually the conscious you. Okay, in this reality, we're not really considered conscious. So subconscious is also not the subconscious as well. The dot in the heart, let me draw that, actually make it a little bit easier, hopefully. Okay. All of us, in fact, everything in life, the whole of reality is holding within itself a spark of energy that allows it to exist. And the dot in the heart is actually, let's say this is our spiritual existence. Spiritual existence. The dot in the heart actually is a memory from the Creator. Let's call it that for a moment. Okay, if you've done the course, or if you're going to do the course, the Wisdom of Kabbalah course, there'll be more on this topic. But let's just say, for the benefit of this short lecture, that the dot in the heart is just a memory of our state in spirituality. It's the memory of our connection with the Creator. Let's call it that. Okay, and this memory, this impression, it wants to go back. It wants to get back into perfection. It wants to go back into this conscious level of existence. This is why we have the body, and a person who's asking about the meaning of life, we say he has a dot in the heart, or she, because he or she has this urge, this push to discover the meaning of life. And the meaning of life is actually to attain spiritual existence. Now, if this dot in the heart didn't exist, we'd never ask the question why we're living. We'd live like an animal and everything would be fine. Our egoism is also attributed to the dot in the heart, because you can't have one without the other. So if this dot in the heart inside a person had not awoken, if it was not asking the question, why am I living, there'd be nothing to talk about. So it's a memory of our conscious state, actually. In this world, if I'm just living inside this body, I'm in a coma. That's it. With a C or a K. Did I get it right? Okay, that's how it is. We're in a coma here. We don't have any conscious understanding of what we're living for. We're like an animal, really. Slightly a bit more sophisticated, completely out of whack and balance. But yeah, other than that, that's about it. This is why it has a limited life, and it will die just like a cat or a bird or an insect. This is the beginning of what a person needs to build, which is the next level of consciousness while living in this world. This is why they must be together. One without the other cannot do. So everything we must accomplish while we live in this world. Nothing's going to happen after we die. It can't. Think about it. What could possibly happen when we die? Nothing. This is why the dot in the heart is crucial. And that's what we need to realize. Why are there so many different kinds of Kabbalah? In Japan, there are many different fortune tellings like tarot cards, etc. Well, because we're a desire to receive pleasure, and we like to do things, and we like to use opportunities that can get us things like money. Okay, it's the story of human history. You know, we like to sell anything and everything if we're going to make a quick buck. Okay, and this is like how it is with many things in life, with many religions. If you look at religions, if you look at anything in life, humanity is willing to sell anything and everything if it's going to make a quick buck. With the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah, unfortunately, we don't have any miracles for you, except the miracle of attaining a higher level of perception, which can actually really bring you to a new level of existence. And actually, I think that's what a miracle is. At the end of the day, even if they get your tarot cards correct, you're not getting away from life. It's not going to happen. All right? And trust me, you might not want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. Not everything, if you have a little bit of experience in life, you know not everything is they're not honky-dory. Okay, life isn't. And it will slap you about. So probably better not to go and get your fortune told, because if you look at life, it's only getting worse. So maybe just not know, just close your eyes altogether anyway. All right, so we have another question. Our friend Akiro, if I want to awaken the whole of the world, what will I do that for? Well, that's a nice question. So, for example, we're now teaching a lot of people around the world, right? Why would we want to do that? Okay, why would I want to awaken other people? Why would I want to tell anyone actually about why we're living, the purpose of life? For one very good reason, which I just mentioned earlier, is that if we just look at life from the side, we can understand that all of us are connected. Everybody. Doesn't matter if you're in Japan, Africa, I don't know, Turkey, Australia, New Zealand, it does not matter. One thing happens in the part of the world, the whole world is affected. You have I don't know, you have some virus in Africa, the whole world is affected. Okay, all these, I don't know, viruses, all these sicknesses, ecology, everything is affecting everybody. Just think about it. To make one shirt, it takes 14 countries. Okay, to make this, you'd think, how could that be? Just get made in one country? No, it's not right. The machinery is somewhere else. The part of the machine is from another place. The cotton is from another place. I don't know, all kinds of additional textile they add is from a different place. To get your clothing, it's already like 14 countries working for you. Think about our technology. There are things made in China, India, somebody's thinking about it in Europe, somebody's inventing it in the US or wherever. It's all interconnected. Now think about it. One country comes and says, you know what, I'm not doing business with you anymore. And everybody in that country is all of a sudden experiencing an economic crisis. This is what happens when a country gets hit with an embargo or something. Okay, because you need things to survive and you can't get them. Now previously it wasn't like that. Previously any country could get along fine. Everybody had their own agriculture, textile industry, everybody was existing okay on their own. But now one country cannot exist on its own. It needs others to provide for it. And the country is just like an individual as well. A country, just like a human being, has a lifespan. It's born, it lives, it dies. Same with us. We're born, we live, we die. Same thing with a country. And also, to awaken others so that we can actually turn the tide to better is good for us, if you think about it. Okay, so wanting the whole world to come to a better state is good for everybody. It's good for us too. Now you might say that's egoistic. Yeah, if it's going to be good for all of us, so what? Okay, it's going to be good for us, all of us. We're not going to be eating each other up. We're going to be helping each other up. And also think about it. We're going to be freeing ourselves from all kinds of these corporeal corporeal waste of time stuff that we're doing right now, which is mostly a waste of time. And we're going to be attaining something higher. So to help others to attain a higher level of consciousness is actually helping the whole world, because we're beginning to get out of our skin, we're beginning to look at our lives from a more mature, from a more purposeful perspective, rather than this transient, temporary, really waste of time. Really is. So it's good for all of us to awaken each other up. Obviously, the dot in the heart is an awakening by nature. So when a person comes to a level of maturity within him or herself, this awakening occurs. So it's very important to utilize that and to realize it as well. Right. Now, I guess that's it, yeah? Okay, so I guess that's about it. However, though, I do have another question, if you just bear with me. And that question is coming from, a friend in Turkey, and Onur from Turkey is asking, So that will be able to figure out what's the meaning of our lives and get rid of our worldly desires by our unity. Okay, so the question is like this. Will we be able to figure out the meaning of our lives and get rid of our worldly desires by our unity? Well, if we all come together and help each other out, there's nothing we can't really do. But what we have to understand here is, we don't have to get rid of any of our desires. Okay, so I don't want to sound like, okay, guys, we don't have to get rid of our desires, okay? Our desires are okay, and we should be happy with our desires, okay? We're just utilizing them in the wrong way. The purpose of life is actually to be happy, to be fulfilled with our desires, but to do it correctly. Okay, so we don't have to get rid of anything. We don't have to get rid of our desires. We don't have to delete ourselves. Okay, we just have to adapt a new approach to life where we can actually fulfill our desires correctly so that we can be happy with them without bringing ruin to the world and without ending up unfulfilled, because this is what the wisdom of Kabbalah is. So by helping each other out, all of us can obviously make this happen. This is very doable, and the group of B'nai Baruch is a large group, and it is a group of Kabbalists here, and this is why we are also teaching humanity, so that the whole of humanity can actually enjoy this process of life where we can actually be happy. It's worthwhile learning, it's worthwhile teaching others, it's worthwhile helping everyone, because it just brings everything in life to a balance. And like I said before, doesn't matter where you live, who you are, what your religion, color, race is, anybody can study this. And the B'nai Baruch group really is an example of how so many different people from all around the world, from different religious backgrounds, cultures, everything, can just come together and through this amazing wisdom really begin to discover this point of joy, happiness that is ongoing. It's an experience that's worthwhile tasting, and if it wasn't worthwhile, we certainly wouldn't be doing it. I've been studying for nearly 20 years. I can definitely say I can't get enough of it. So, I don't know, I recommend everyone to evaluate their lives, really. It's like a bit of accounting. So what do I have in my life? And according to this wisdom, what can I get from life? And this should be a very concrete calculation for everyone. Yeah. Okay. One more question here from our friend. I heard that the root of Kabbalah is the desire to receive. After all, studying Kabbalah means to know the desire. Means to know the desire. Well, we could say that, but let's think of it this way. Okay, we are a desire. Our root is a desire. Well, how can I say? Our essence is a desire to receive pleasure. Okay, this is our essence. Our essence equals, its essence is a desire to receive pleasure. Okay, that's what it is. And this is what we need to discover. And this is what we need to learn how to use correctly in order to be happy all the time. So if I do this, it'll be a nice chat with a big fat smile. Okay, so this should be us in our constant state, actually, if we just know how to use our nature correctly. And can we say that the answer is receiving by each one who has the original property? And this is from Hiroshi. Hiroshi Otsubo. And can we say that the answer is by receiving by each one who has this original property? Well, yes, because we're all a desire to receive pleasure, we have to know how to correctly receive. Okay, correctly, correct fulfillment. And this is the whole wisdom of Kabbalah, correctly fulfilling myself. So we want to use the desire to receive in a correct way where it will get fulfillment, and it will get fulfillment forever without any relinquishment of fulfillment. Okay. We have a question from Australia. Great. Itai, is that you asking the question? Yeah, I figured so. Okay. Let me just get my head around that one. So Itai is asking, what about the place to grow the point in the heart? Thank you. Okay. So, well, now you're talking about how to attain the purpose of life. Okay, so we understood, hopefully from this lecture, that we have to attain a purpose which is higher than, we have to attain a higher level of consciousness which is beyond our body, right? So a higher level of existence, that's what we need to attain. So Itai is asking is, how are we going to do that? Am I correct? You're straight to the point. How can we grow this dot in the heart? Well, just like everything in life, if I have a dot in the heart, it means I have a desire for spirituality, right? An inclination to spirituality. Inclination to spirituality. It's not spirituality, it's just a hunch, a gut feeling. If I want to realize it, I need to work on it. And for me to work on it, I need a teacher. I need the books, the right books, and I need a good bunch of friends. Okay? This, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, we call an environment. Environment. So, if you want to study the wisdom of Kabbalah and attain that high level of consciousness, that high level of perception, and get a really good grasp on your life here, understand everything, why everything's happening to you, and so forth, you need a good environment, which is true for everything. I mean, if I want to be a good musician, I'm not going to hang out with you, am I, Tai? I'm not somewhere in Bendigo. No, I'm going to hang out with someone who's good at music or whatever, right? Okay, but because you and I have a common goal, okay, which is to attain spirituality. So what do we want to do? We want to hang out together and study together so we can actually help each other out. And that's the whole point. So that's the whole idea, where we can actually help each other out. There you go. So Itai, give everybody a nice wave. There you go. So, any other questions there, Omri? Okay, no. I guess the time is also up. Are we up with the time as well? Okay, great. So, just in a nutshell, guys, let's just sum it up. Any person who's wondering about the meaning of life and wants to study the wisdom of Kabbalah should know that this is a wisdom where a person can develop a sixth sense and attain a high level of perception and actually exist in that level of perception beyond the bodily limitations of this world and really integrate into the reality which is beyond corporeal reality while living in this world as well. And once your life passes here as well, that doesn't change the fact that you've attained spirituality. You can still exist in spirituality. Just like when we get a haircut, we still exist. Why? Because our hair belongs to the vegetative level. Our nails, we cut them off, but the body still lives. Because the nails belong to the vegetative level, and our body is at a higher level. It's at an animate level. So the below degree isn't really something that's affecting us. So existing in a spiritual level doesn't really affect your existence in your body. So beyond corporeal limitations, continuing your existence in complete pleasure and fulfillment, also while living here. Also, what is greater fulfillment than actually understanding why everything is happening to you? Imagine how you knew everything, how you knew the reason for everything, and how even the future was going to unfold. Many Kabbalists in the past wrote about the future. How did they know about it? So this is why sometimes they confuse Kabbalah with fortune telling, because some Kabbalist is describing the future. No, because when you attain spirituality, you see the whole of reality. You see it from beginning to end. It doesn't give you any boundaries of time as in now. It gives you the whole perspective of reality. So imagine how Kabbalists were able to write to us thousands of years ago. What would happen in this century? So definitely is a wisdom with a few advantages there already. All right, dear friends, we've come to the end of our lesson. I hope you enjoyed this introductory lecture, and I hope we'll be able to have more time together. You'll also be happy to know that there are lessons that we've uploaded on YouTube, which you can just go in there and watch. Every topic is explained every week. So there are quite a few lectures on there you can watch in English, Turkish, Japanese. And also, if you're serious about taking it even further, you can register to our online academy and also take lectures and courses there as well. Join an overall community. And also, if you want to study in a group, you'll be happy to know that there are friends all around the world, and they'll be more than happy to help you. We'll be more than happy to help you. If you need anything, we're definitely helping everyone from around the world to study. We have lessons every day, and we can also do many lessons like these on certain topics if you wish to also, study something specific. So everything is at your disposal. We're more than happy to help and serve. And having said that, hope you guys have a great weekend. All the best and take care. Have a great day. Bye now.